You're gonna have to help me out here with the pronunciation. So I'm guessing it's just Kornél.
Yeah, Kornél. Yeah,
Corner, like corner.
yeah,
Okay.
like Kornél. Like it's like Kornél basically, but we in Hungary we have like the E sounds like an A, like a Kornél. Still
Corner.
pronounce the L at the end of everything.
Okay. Cornell.
Yeah.
No, then I'm stuck.
Szűcs.
Suze?
Szűcs. Ch.
Suit.
It's like a ch
Where's
sound at
this
the
one
end.
like
Like
the 2008 Eurovision Song Contest
it's
entry?
like a ch sound at the end. So you go su, like almost like Ronaldo goes su,
Yeah.
you know, su and then ch, like su ch.
Corner Such.
Yeah,
Corner
that's
Such.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I've taken
You
a
got it.
note, and I'm still going to
Yeah.
mess it up. Hello and welcome back to another bonus episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. Today, we are joined by Hungarian football expert. Is it okay to call you that, Ben?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
call me that. Yeah.
Yeah, you cover football is your day job. So, and you've recently seen corner. I've already
Kornél Szűcs. Yeah.
yeah. You've seen him play recently as well. So, I just think it'd be great to hear more about our new signing. For those who haven't seen, Argyle have signed defender, and I'm going to butcher his name again, Kornél Szűcs.
Perfect. I think you got it perfect, lad. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very rare that I get anything perfect, so I'm very happy with that. They've signed him for an undisclosed fee from Hungarian top division side.
Kecskemeti. Shall I just say all the Hungarians?
Yes, please. Sorry, how are we saying that?
Kecskemeti.
Kecskemeti. Yes, them. He's able to play as a centre back, a right back, and a right wing back. But we're going to get into that with yourself, I suppose. We've already mentioned the pronunciation. We did that before I did the intro stupidly. But what are your initial thoughts on the move? Because you said on Twitter that you were a little bit surprised.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised because he's not a good player or he's not a talented player. It's just in the Hungarian division, we don't really see people moving to the championship. It's like okay, maybe in the early 2000s, and as you guys are Plymouth fans, you'll be aware there was a lot of Hungarian players moving to the championship and doing well. But nowadays it's a lot rarer. If you look at direct transfers for Hungarian players from the Hungarian top division to the championship, you'll be struggling to find one in the last 10 sort of years. So that's why it's so unprecedented, and that's why I was surprised because like it just doesn't really happen. I know his agency has they were involved in lots of deals with English clubs for Hungarian players, so they do have that connection. But it's still rare, especially with Brexit and obviously the changes that were implemented by the FA in terms of getting work permits and stuff. It has sort of eased up a little bit now, and I think that's why Kornél is able to move to Plymouth. But even like a couple of years ago, I think Adam Martin has been linked with Plymouth recently, and he was going to go to Luton a couple of years ago. But back then the restrictions were a lot stricter, and even though he got 2 assists against England in a 4-0 win for Hungary, even though he was a top goal scorer in his country, a Hungarian international, he didn't actually qualify to get the work permit, and that move collapsed to Luton at the time, and he ended up moving to South Korea. So it is very rare that this kind of thing happens nowadays because of the strict rules, which have been relaxed a little bit, and I think that's why we are seeing Kornél being able to move to Plymouth, and I think that's why I was surprised. But I think overall it's got the potential of being a really smart signing, especially when I became sort of more familiar with, Plymouth squad. Like you were telling me, you kind of have makeshift right backs at the moment, sort of midfielders that you've made into right backs, and obviously I think you guys play with a three at the back as well. So that's something that I think he fits into those kind of profiles there, as he's played with a three at the back at Kecskemeti predominantly, where he was in the Hungarian top flight. So he's used to that system already. He can play as the right back in that system. He can also play as the centre back in that system. And I think a really important and sort of vital thing about him that Rooney mentioned in the announcement as well. He said he was versatile, and I think it's quite underrated when a centre back can sort of shift between playing as a right back and as a as a right-sided centre back and as a left-sided centre back. And actually, Kornél, he's been able to do both of that in his career. So when he was at Diósgyőr in the second division, he was playing a lot of the times as a left-sided centre back, and he can play as a right-sided centre back as well. So
Okay, cool.
he can pretty much come in and fill in all of those positions, which I think is really important. I think nowadays for a modern defender, and especially for someone who I don't know if he's going to be a starter straight away, but if you're coming in and you can play in a variety of different roles, you've got a good chance of getting a lot of minutes and breaking into the starting 11. So I think that's a really positive thing for Kornél.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that he's used to playing in a back three at Kecskemeti, because we appear to have switched to a more of a, it's sort of like a 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1 fluid thing, in which our left back somehow pops up in the 10 role. It's a bit, it's like inverts but goes forward. Has he had much experience playing in a back four, or do you think that's not really going to be an issue anyway? If he can play at right back and right centre back anyway, it's not really.
Yeah, he's. I mean, Kecskemeti sometimes switch to a back four as well, but he's played in a back four for the Hungarian national team at times, or even when he was playing in the second division. So I don't think that's necessarily going to be an issue for him, especially because I think you probably predominantly brought him in to play as a right back,
Yeah.
based on what you told me about how there's not that many right backs in the squad, and I looked on transfer market as well that it doesn't seem like you have any natural right back in the squad. So for
Yeah,
me,
we've just signed Victor Paulsen, who is, for me, the two games I've seen him is more of
former
a,
Liverpool academy player.
yeah,
So
exactly,
yes, I
yeah.
know him. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's more of a, feels more of a CDM who's can sort of just cover it right back, and then we've got Joe Edwards, who was a centre midfielder, and we sort of turned him into a right wing back and now a right back. So it's good that we've got somebody who could be considered slightly more natural on that side. Obviously, you've already mentioned that one of his key strengths is his versatility, but what is his, in terms of playing attributes? What are his strengths?
So he's really comfortable on the ball. I think that's something I have to highlight because he's just really good at sort of stepping into midfield, whether that's from right back or from centre back. He can just sort of step into midfield and beat a couple of players. I mean, obviously, the championship will have a lot higher press than the Hungarian division, so it's going to be a step up,
Yeah.
and we'll wait and see whether he's able to sort of transfer those skills to the championship. But in the Hungarian division, that's one of the things that he sort of stood out in, is his ability to bring the ball out from the back. He's very good at sort of stepping into midfield, beating a couple of players, finding space and exploiting that space when he does find it. And then I think his distribution is good as well. He's always sort of looking for forward passes, looking to penetrate in between the lines, and I think that's really important for a centre back nowadays. To be able to do that. And on top of that, I think he's quite quick. That's why he's been able to play as a fullback and as a wing back, because he's got a fairly decent amount of speed. I don't exactly know the exact figures of what his top speed was in the Hungarian top flight, but just by looking at the eye test, he's always good to make quick recoveries. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons why he's sort of suited to the championship as well, because that's a lot higher pace, a lot higher intensity, and he does have that speed that will help him a lot. He's not sort of, if people remember Christian Tima, he's not that kind of
Mm.
defender, the sort of no nonsense, just head everything that comes your way kind of defender. He's got a bit more technique, bit more sort of modernity about him. If I that's I think
Yeah.
the right word to say.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Christian Timar for exactly that reason that you're saying, that just put his body in the way of everything, and yeah, as you say, defending has changed slightly. So I suppose on the flip side of that is, what are the weaknesses in his game, and what will we look to improve whilst he's at the club?
So I was looking at his aerial duel statistics, which actually it doesn't really stand out to me when I watch him, but for a defender going into the championship, I think the fact that he only wins around 50, just over 50% of his aerial duels is
Okay,
quite low.
right.
I think that's an area where he probably needs to improve. I mean, he's playing as a fullback a lot of the times, and I know fullbacks in general win a lesser percentage than centre backs, just because it's harder as a fullback sometimes to win your aerial duels. Um, but I think that is one area where you'd be perhaps a little bit concerned, because there's a lot of high balls in the championship. I know it's changing, the championship is changing as well, but traditionally it's still sort of a lot of the times you'll see Route One football and that kind of thing. And if he needs to come into that, I think he'll need to be able to adapt. I mean, he's a tall player,
Mm,
uh, and I think he does have the potential. It is something that you can improve in. I mean, I'd be a lot more concerned if he didn't have like the reading of the game, or that sort of intelligence, which he does have. That's why he's been able to play in so many different positions, because he's a very mature and intelligent player who can, when he needed to, he actually played as a holding midfielder sometimes in his earlier career. So he can pretty much play in a lot of positions, and that shows you that he's a very intelligent player who's good at reading the game. His aerial duel statistics haven't been great, but I think that's an area where you can always improve, and it's not something that comes naturally. It's something that can be coached, and it's something that where you can develop in. So yeah, that's why I said he's not exactly a Tima type of guy, because for Tima you would probably say that was his biggest strength to win those aerial duels. I think that might be Kornél's sort of weakness as for a defender, but it's not the end of the world either. It's not. I don't think it's something that you'd have to be too worried about. It's something that can definitely be coached and developed.
Yeah, what's the expectation for him long term? Is he somebody that's looked at as a something that's going to make the step up to the Hungarian national team, or has he sort of sailed under the radar a little bit, and this is coming as a bit of a surprise to other Hungarian football supporters?
Yeah, I think he's kind of an underrated player in the Hungarian top flight.
Mm.
Um, he was a Hungary under 21 international, but he didn't get too many caps. He's been involved at the Hungarian youth level uh, from the beginning. Really, he's always been in that setup. He wasn't necessarily a starter or playing a lot of games or getting a lot of caps, but he's always been in and around that sort of circle. Um, but I do think he's uh, he's had a sort of rapid rise recently. Um, Last season was I think his first season in the top flight in a while, because before that he was in the second division. So he's only had one really good season in the top flight. Before that, in the second division, he was playing for a very popular club in the Austria, who are one of the most supported clubs in Hungary. But they kind of fell upon harder times, and they ended up being sort of getting into the second division. Got promoted, had their first season in the first division last season, but Kornél obviously ended up moving to Kecskemeti instead, and Kecskemeti is a much bigger club. They were actually in the Europa Conference League qualifying last season because they made it. On paper, they're not the bigger club, I should say. I think if there's any Hungarian people listening, Kecskemeti is sort of proper underdog. They've had their licenses taken away from them about 10 years ago, demoted to amateur football, and had come up through the third. So they came from like the fourth to the third and the first division, sort of earning consecutive promotions and then actually making it to the Europa Conference League. They do actually have in the last couple of years produced players for the national team. So we've had Gabor Szalai, who's earned to move to the Swiss Super League. He's been in around the national team setup. And there was also Christopher Horvath, who's at Kecskemeti. He was in Hungary squad for the Euros. And on top of that, Shoma Sudohovsky, who's another player who then ended up moving within the league from Kecskemeti to Debrecen. He actually was in the Hungarian national. He was called up to the Hungarian national senior team as well. So he did play for a club that was good at developing players and sort of taking them on and moving them on to the next step. And I think Kornél really developed a lot in the last year or so. He was, like you mentioned, I saw him live in a behind closed doors game recently, and he was very good. Just very confident on the ball and that kind of thing. And I think he is someone, like, you have to say, he might have fallen under the radar, but he's definitely on the radar now, moving to the championship, because as I mentioned earlier, Hungary don't really have players in the championship. It's quite rare in the last sort of 10 years that we've had any sort of player there. So the mere fact that he's there in, I would say the championship, I still put as one of the strongest leagues in Europe, even though it's a second division. But I think, beyond Portugal, the Netherlands, and if you're looking beyond that, it's probably after those up there as one of the strongest divisions. And for that reason alone, if you do well for Plymouth, and I hope he does, then he's got to be in that conversation, because I think right now that sort of right-sided centre-back role is a sort of area where Hungary are looking to bring in a younger defender, and him being 22, going to be turning 23 in September. He's got the profile to be a good option for that. So it's all up to him, I think, to make the most of this move and make it count at Plymouth and take that opportunity. And then if he does that, he will catch the national team's attention.
Yeah, I suppose the last question before I let you go. Obviously, we've already mentioned some of them, but Kornél becomes our fifth Hungarian player after Akos Bizaki, Peter Halmosi, Christian Timar, and Georgi Sandor, who never actually played for us but was signed. I suppose, is there any perception of Argyle over in Hungary, and do people know us because of those players, or are those players like off the radar to most Hungarians and they're just random names? What's the perception of Argyle in Hungary?
Well, I think you have a sort of good reputation because we've had
good.
a lot of players go to England and not do so well, but it seems to be when obviously, except for Gerd Shandor, when Hungarian players do go to England and to Plymouth, they tend to do well. And I think it was a bit before my time. I don't really remember any of those watching those sort of players for Plymouth. But I do sort of remember those names. They are sort of not just cult heroes, I think, in Plymouth, but in sort of the Hungarian football history of that sort of generation. They are sort of iconic names who were national team players and who represented the national team. And Harmoshi and Bocsák obviously went on to play in the Premier League as well, which again, not a lot of Hungarian players do. So,
No.
yeah, I think Argyle has a good reputation, and I think likewise Hungarian players have a good reputation in Argyle as well. So I think it goes hand in hand, and yeah, like a lot of well, I think Timar in particular, he's still got a name in Hungarian football right now. He's a coach of a first division side. He used to coach a second division side too. I was actually looking at sort of Transfermarkt to see if Kornél ever encountered him as a manager. Unfortunately, I think the times when his team did play, Kornél was either on the bench or not in the squad. So he didn't actually get to face up against Timar's team, but they did. So they were in the sort of second division around the same time. So I don't know, that's kind of
They'll be
interesting.
aware of each other then. They'll be aware, but
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Timar used to coach the Hungarian youth national teams as well, so he's
oh,
got
okay.
a good he's got a good reputation as a sort of young developing coach in Hungary, and he's now manager of Nyíregyháza and managed to get them promoted to the Hungarian top flight, and is doing a good job there. It's with a club that is a very sort of big underdog, and you don't really expect them to even stay up in the top flight. So we'll see what happens with them this season. But yeah, it's I think yeah, Hungarian people look fondly at Plymouth and the memories that those players made. I mean, back in those days, you weren't able to watch a lot of live games and stuff like that, but I do remember a few years later there was this Hungarian YouTube channel called Bentex TV, and he used to cut together all the highlights of like the best moments of, I don't know, Harmoshi in Plymouth. So as a kid, when I was getting into football, a few years after they sort of left Plymouth, I was getting sort of watching highlights of Harmoshi at Plymouth or Bocsák at Plymouth, and you can see they were great players and just really cult iconic figures, I think, in Hungarian football. And same with Timar. I think Timar actually had two spells at Plymouth, if I'm correct.
Yes, he technically had two spells with us because he came on loan from
Yeah,
Ferencváros
that's
to
what I
start
thought.
with,
Yeah,
and then joined permanently. Had a loan spell away at Oldham, and then came back, and then just never really found the form that he had
yeah,
to start with because he had a bit of a nasty head injury, and then ended up in Vietnam after that. So
yeah. So unfortunately, the Timar that I remember was the one who came back from Oldham and wasn't really playing a lot. Unfortunately, I never
yeah,
got to see him in his prime. But yeah, I think that reputation is strong. What was that mural that Szűcs posed in front of for his
yeah. So
picture?
there's a mural at the ground of all three of them.
Wow,
Um,
I
of
wasn't aware of that.
yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Timar, Zaki, and Halmosi. And it's just got their like there's quite a few around the ground.
Mm.
But to be on one of them is pretty impressive. But yeah, like you say, like the Hungarian connection at Argyle is strong. So
Yeah, and I think
hopefully he
I,
can
I
be.
I'm I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure Halmoshi was at Plymouth around the COVID time to do some sort of coaching badges or scouting badges.
Oh,
I
right.
can't remember. But
Oh,
obviously, because of COVID happened, he had to go back to Hungary, and all of that was disrupted. But I don't know if it's been rekindled or revived since. But I do know, like, even they all still have a good connection to the club, and it's nice to sort of see them on murals. And I think the goal for Szűcs will be to be the next one to get himself on there. And I think he's got the potential to do it. He's a good player. He's got a great mentality as well. He's a good lad. I've followed his career for a while now. I can say we're Facebook friends as well, and we follow each other on Instagram too. So yeah, I've told him congratulations on the move, and he was very kind and thankful and said thank you. And I'm really rooting for him to do well, because he's got the potential to do it, and it's a great opportunity as well.
Yeah, so we're hoping that it all goes well. Well, if you ever come and watch him, let us know, and we'll grab a beer or something somewhere.
Definitely. I have to go at some point.
It sounds good. Well, let us know, and we can sort that out. But look, really appreciate your time and the information as well. I'm definitely excited to see him play. Hopefully, our season starts on Sunday away at Sheffield Wednesday, so he might get some minutes up there. But it will be really interesting to see how he progresses and how he gets on. But really appreciate that. Thanks for your time. I'll leave all of your social links and stuff in the bio, so people can find you. But no, really appreciate that. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.